What's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel Sent from Mars. My name is Mari, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I made this purse right here, inspired by one of my favorite characters from Star Wars. So let's get started.
Okay, so I was really inspired by Chewbacca for this bag, and I thought it would be really fun to do a faux fur bag and use his belt strap as the inspiration for the design and add a bunch of metallic gems across the front just to give it like this really fun sparkly look, but then you can still tell the inspiration. So after I had that idea, the next step was to make the pattern. So I just used some paper and a pencil and I cut out the size I wanted. And then I made the strap a little bit longer so that I could actually slide my hand through it. So I could either wear it as a purse or I could wear it as a clutch. Once I had the pattern ready, the next thing I did was cut out my fabric, and I made this out of a brown faux fur and I cut the pieces out. But what I really wanted to do was to make these sparkle. So what I did was use some hair tinsel to do that. I bought some hair tinsel off eBay. I picked the colors I wanted. I started off with this gray holographic tinsel that just looked really cool with the gems. And I used a needle and basically used the tinsel like thread to sew in each piece onto the front of the faux fur. This part was a little bit tedious, but oddly relaxing to just sew them on there. And I just scattered them all over the front and I kept adding them until I felt like I had enough. And then after I added all the gray pieces, I actually also added in a metallic brown just to give it some dimension and a little extra color. Okay, so the next thing I started doing was working on the belt strap, and I used two different color fabrics to make that, just to give it some more texture and just to make it a little bit more interesting. And I started off by creating the base out of the brown faux leather, and I used some interfacing to thicken that up so that it was sturdy enough to hold the weight of the gems once it was all finished. I designed the sides to fold into the middle of this so that the edges of the strap were nice and clean. And then I just sewed along the center seam with my sewing machine. Once I was done, I just added some edge stitching to the sides just to give it some extra texture and really finish off the look of the belt strap. The next thing I did was start working on the top piece of the belt strap, which I made out of the copper metallic leather. So I went ahead and cut that piece out. And then I actually added interfacing to this piece also because I really wanted to make sure that this belt was sturdy. So I ironed that onto the back side. Once that was done, I also added some stitching to this piece. One, because I really like the way it looks. I think stitching looks really clean. And two, I use these as a guide to house my gems when I sewed them on so that everything was really nice and aligned. The next thing I did was to actually start sewing the gems on. So to make my life a little bit easier, I made myself a guide in Illustrator so that I could keep everything evenly spaced apart. I tried doing this with a ruler, but the math was just a little bit too much for me, so I made myself a little paper guide, and that just kept everything in place. To sew these gems on, I just used a needle and thread. I picked a gray color that matched my gems so that it blended in, and I just started sewing each of these in by hand. So this part was a little bit tedious, but so worth it when it was all done. So I just took my needle and sewed each of these gems on. And after I had sewn a few of these in, I started using pliers to pull my needle through the leather. That was a lot easier than trying to use my fingers. And then I knotted each of these in the back like 4 times because I really did not want these to fall off once they were all done. And after I sewed every gem, I used my guide to keep everything nice and lined up because I knew that was going to make a big difference once it was all done. So the next thing I did was to sew the actual belt strap together. I saved that copper piece for last so that I could hide my stitching of the gems on the other side. That way you don't see it at all. I just used binder clips to clip those together, and then I sewed them using my industrial sewing machine because this is a pretty thick piece. The next thing I did was to work on the strap of my purse. So I made a crossbody strap and I used the brown faux leather to make that. It's just a 2-inch wide strip and mine was about 75 inches long, and then 2 little pieces for the side tabs. To make the actual strap, I just folded the sides in and then gave it an edge stitch on both sides to hold it in place. And to finish it, I added a strip of grosgrain ribbon down the middle. It's a metallic silver, so it looks cool, and then it hides the seam in the middle so you don't see that. And I did the same thing for the side tabs. And to finish those, I added D-rings so that I could hook my strap onto it and take it off. And I sewed the bottom closed so that they were ready to get sewn onto my bag later. From here, I just needed to finish off my purse strap. So I used an adjustable slider so that way I could readjust the length of my purse if needed. So to do that, I just threaded my strap through that little adjustable slider. I added on a swivel hook and finished sliding the strap through and then just tacked it down on one end with a little box stitch. And I turned the end under so that you can't see the edge of that strap, and it's really nice and clean looking once it's all sewn together. To finish it off, I took the other end of the strap and added on my last little swivel hook. I folded the end under 2 times, and then I finished that off with a box and an X stitch. And then that part was done and my strap was ready to go, and I just set that aside for later for when I was actually going to wear the purse. So once that was done, the next thing I started doing was working on the lining, and this part was fun because I love the fabric that I picked out. It's a Porg and R2D2 fabric that I found at Joann's, and it was just perfect for this bag. So I went ahead and cut out a front and back piece using my pattern, and then I also cut out a pocket bag because I added a little zipper pocket in here, and then interfacing for all these pieces so that they were nice and sturdy. The fabric is on the thinner side, so this helped give it that nice sturdy feel. Then I started working on the zipper pocket, so I took my pocket bag and drew a box for where my zipper was gonna go. Then I pinned that to one lining piece and sewed directly on that box that I drew on there. The next thing I did was cut a slit down the middle, so I used a ruler to mark that out and then used little precision scissors to cut all the way into the corners so I could turn the pocket bag through. Once that was done, I pushed the pocket bag through that opening and then used an iron to press the edges so that they were really nice and crisp. Then I added on my zipper, so I took my zipper and I held it in place using some pins. Once everything was pinned together, I took a zipper foot and sewed right around that opening to sew those 2 pieces together. Then the last thing I did was just to finish off that pocket bag, I folded the bottom up and pinned all of the edges together, and then used my sewing machine just to sew that closed. Once that was done, this lining was ready to go, and I had this nice pocket bag with this cute little Porg fabric, and then even when you open the zipper pocket, you can see them in there, so it was just really fun, and I was excited to put this piece into my bag. One of the last things I did was to add interfacing to the faux fur. So I've put interfacing on pretty much everything in this bag, but I really wanted it to be sturdy. I did not want it to start collapsing in the middle or anything. So I just ironed that onto the back sides, and I avoided the edges to make sure I didn't melt any of the faux fur. Then I finished off the front piece by adding all of the details. So I added my belt, sewed that on using my sewing machine. Then I added the 2 side tabs. That's where my purse strap's gonna clip on when I want to wear it like a purse. And then lastly, I added a label. It says "Sent from Mars." This is one of my favorite parts to add. I just think it's really fun to be proud of whatever you're making and have fun doing it. So made sure to add that onto mine. And then I sewed that on using my sewing machine, and then the front piece was ready to go. So from here, I'm just about done with the bag, and the next thing to do was to add the zipper. So I started by putting the zipper face down and binder clipping that to the top of my front piece. And then I took my lining with the zipper pocket, laid that face down on the front piece, and then re-clipped the binder clips so that everything was in place and I could sew these pieces together. Once that was done, I used the zipper foot and just sewed right along that top edge with my sewing machine. Once that was done, I basically repeated these steps to finish the bag off. So I took my other faux fur piece and I made sure that the faux fur was facing the right direction, and I used binder clips to clip that onto the top of the zipper. Then I took my second lining piece and just re-clipped those binder clips so that everything was in place. And then I sewed this edge together using that zipper foot and my sewing machine. When I was done, my zipper was fully attached and this bag was ready to get sewn together. So to sew this bag together, I just took my front and back pieces of the faux fur and then binder clipped those together. And then I just sewed right along the edge using my industrial sewing machine because I did have some thick pieces on here. Then I made sure my zipper was open and binder clipped the lining pieces together and left an opening at the bottom so that I could turn the whole bag inside out once it was done. And then sewed those together using my sewing machine. Once that was done, the bag was almost complete, and I get to do my favorite part, turn the bag right side out. This is when you really get to see the bag come to life, and it's almost done. And so from there, I just used a pair of scissors to poke the corners out of the lining just to make sure they were nice and crisp. Then I went ahead and closed off that bottom opening that I used to turn the bag out, and then sewed that closed using my sewing machine. Once that was done, I just pushed the lining back into the bag and it was done, and I had finished this Chewbacca inspired bag. I finished this actually like a day before the movie came out, so I was able to take this with me when I saw it, and it was perfect. And it's just fun. It goes with pretty much everything because of those metallic gems on the front, and it just looks really cool. Even if you don't know the inspiration, it's still fun, but if you do know, it's even funner. And that is how I made this bag right here.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.